Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna, Shri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajeham. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shirvasadi Gaur Bhakta Vinda. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devi Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Nashtaprayarsvabhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31. Lord Kapila's instructions on the movement of the living entities. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Karmana Deva Nitrena Jantur Deho Papattaye Sriyaha Pravishta Uddaram Pumsuretaha Kanashayaha.
Lena, would you like to read?
Oh, yes, please, Prabhuji.
Right.
Thank you. The personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body.
Kalalam Tvaikaratrena Pancharatrena Budbudam Dashahena tu Karkandhu Teshandam Vahatatah Param.
On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum, and after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be.
Masena tu sirodhvabhyam Bhavangriyadyanga Vigraha Nakhalo Mashti Charmani Linga Chidro Bhavastribihi.
In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus.
चतुर्भिर्दातवः सप्त पञ्चभिक्षुत्रिदुद्भवः सद्भिर्जरायुणावितः कुक्षौ भ्राम्यति दक्षिणे.
Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely child blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt, and at the end of 6 months, the fetus, enclosed by the amnion, begins to move on the right side of the abdomen.
मातुर्जग्धानपानादि एधद्धातुर् असम्मते सेत्ते विन्मुत्रयोर्गर्ते सजन्तुर्जन्तु संभवे.
Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms.
कर्मिभिः क्षत्त सर्वाङ्गः शौकुमार्यात् प्रतिक्षणम् मूर्च्छाम् आप्नोति उरुक्लेशस्तत्रत्यः क्षोधितेर्मुहुः.
Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition.
कटुतिक्स्नोष्णलवन्ना रुक्षाम्लाद्दिभिरुल्बणैः मात्रभुक्तिरुपस्पृष्टः सर्वाङ्गोत्थितवेदनः.
Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs, or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable.
उल्बेन संवृतस्तस्मिन् अन्त्रैश्च बहिरावृतः आष्टे कृत्वा शिरः कुक्षौ भुग्नपृष्ठः शिरोधरः.
Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly and his back and neck arched like a bow.
अकल्पः स्वाङ्गचेष्टायां सकुन्त इव पञ्जरे तत्र लब्धा स्मृतिर्देवात् कर्मजन्म सतोद्भवम् स्मरन् दीर्घम् अनुवासं सर्म किं नाम विन्दते.
The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition?
आरभ्य सप्तमानाशाल् लब्धबोधोऽपि वेपितः नैकत्रास्ते सुतीवातेर्विष्ठा भूरिव सोदरः.
Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place.
Okay, so let's do summary. Surinder Prabhu, over to you.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat to all the Vaishnavas, Nitaj Gaur Haribol. Yes, so we are reading chapter 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on movements of the living entities. Life in the womb, verses 1 to 10. Under the Lord's supervision, according to his karma, the jiva is made to enter into a woman's womb through the semen. The development of the embryo is described by Kapildev. Trapped in his mother's womb, the living entity suffers terribly. He is bitten by worms and burned by his mother's secretions. His body is bent like a bow. From the 7th month, the child attains consciousness, and frightened, he prays to the Lord, appealing for relief from his condition. Yes, so the thing is, it is described the fourfold miseries as follows. Janma, karma, janma, and then there is janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi. Yes, so birth, and then death, jara, old age, and vyadhi means disease. So these are the fourfold miseries. So in this chapter, the previous chapter, chapter 30, Lord Kapildev explained about old age and death. And in this chapter, Lord Kapildev, chapter 31, he's explaining about the miseries during birth. So life in the womb, for example. So yes, so in one of the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur song entitled Denya, Humility, first song, Sharanagati, it says like that, Bhuliya tomare samsara asiya, peye nana vidha bhyata, tomara charane asiya chiyami, bolibo dukhera katha. I forsook you, O Lord, and came to this world of pain and sorrow. Now I submit the tale of woe at your lotus feet. While still in the unbearable fetters of my mother's womb, I saw you before me. You revealed yourself but briefly, and then abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment, I swore to worship you after taking birth. But birth came, and with it the network of worldly illusions, which robbed me of all good sense. Then I'll follow when it follows in the Bhagavatam related to those. I'll read the translations again. So Hare Krishna, Nidai Gaur Haribol. Thank you very much.
That was a really powerful bhajan. I remember that bhajan.
Yes, it's a very good one. Yes.
It's amazing bhajan. Thank you. Up to text 21 now.
Yes, Prabhuji. नाथमान ऋषिर्भीतः सप्तव्रद्रिः कृताञ्जलिः स्तुविततं विक्लवया वाचायेनोदरेर्पितः.
The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities.
Where did you read that?
Sorry, I jumped to chapter 13. I mean, verse 13. Did I?
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. That's okay.
Shall I read
Yeah,
the
number 11.
11th one? The living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition. So sorry.
No, it's okay, don't worry.
जन्तुरुवाच तस्योपसन्नमवितुं जगति चिच्छयात नानातनूर्भुवि चलचिच्छरनारविन्दम् सोऽहं व्रजामि शरणं हि यकुत्थभयं मे येनेदृशी गतिरतस्य सतोऽनुरूपा.
The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only, because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities.
यस्त्वत्र बद्धैव कर्मभिरावृतात्मा भूतीन्द्रियाशयमयीम् अवलम्ब्य मायम् आष्टे विशुद्धमविकारम् अखण्डबोधम् आतप्यमानहृदयैव नमामि.
I, the pure soul, appearing now, bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances.
यः पञ्चभूतरचिते रहितः शरीरे छन्नो यथेन्द्रियगुणार्थचिदात्मकोऽहम् तेनाविकुण्ठमहिमानं ऋषिणम् वन्दे परं प्रकृतिपुरुषयोः पुमांशम्.
I am separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in this material body, which is made of 5 elements, and therefore my qualities and senses are being misused, although I am essentially spiritual. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entities, because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he is always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisance unto him.
यन्माययोरुगुणकर्मनिबन्धनेऽस्मिन् सांसारिके पथि चरंस्तदभिश्रमेण नष्टस्मितिः पुनरयं प्रविनीतलोकम् युक्त्या कया महदनुग्रहमन्तरेण.
The human soul further prays. The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. This conditional life is due to his forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can he again engage in transcendental loving service of the Lord?
ज्ञानं यतेतदधात् कतमः सदैव त्रैकालिकं स्थिरचरेष्वनुवर्तितां सः तं जीव कर्मपदवीम् अनुवर्तमानस्तापत्रयोपशमनाय वयं भजेम.
No one other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the localized Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. He is present in the 3 phases of time, past, present, and future. Therefore, the conditioned soul is engaged in different activities by his direction. And in order to get free from the threefold miseries of this conditional life, we have to surrender unto him only.
देह्यन्यदेहविवरे जठराग्निनाश्रेत् विन्मूत्रकूपपठितो भृशतप्तदेहः इच्छन्नितो विवशितुं गणयन् स्वमासान् निर्वास्यते कृपणधिर्भगवन् कदानु.
Fallen into a pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body scorched by the mother's gastric fire, the embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, "O my Lord, when shall I, wretched soul, be released from this confinement?"
येनेदृशीं गतिमशोदशमास्यैष सङ्ग्राहितः पुरुडयेन भवादृशेन स्वेनैव तुष्यतु कृत्तेन साधिननाथ को नाम तत्प्रतिविनाञ्जलिमस्य कुर्यात्.
My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy, I am awakened to consciousness. Although I am only 10 months old, for this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with folded hands.
पश्चात्ययं धिसनयाननुशाप्तभ्रद्रीः शारीरकीदमशरीरपरः स्वदेहे यच्छ्रेष्ठया समहं पुरुषपुराणं पश्ये बहिर्हृदि च चैत्यमिव प्रतीतम्.
The living entity in another type of body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body and by whose grace I can see Him within and without.
सोऽहं वसन्नपि विभुं बहुदुःखवासं गर्भाननिर्जिगमिषे बहिरन्धकूपे यत्रोपयातमुपसर्पतिदिवमाया मिथ्यामतिर्यदनु संसृतिचक्रमेत.
Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy, called Devamaya, at once captures the newly born child and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death, begins.
तस्मादहं विगत विक्लव उद्धरिस्य आत्मानमासु तमसः सुहृदात्मनेव भूयो यथा व्यसनं नितदनेकनेत्रं मामे भविष्यदुपसादित विष्णुपादः.
Therefore, without being agitated anymore, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nescience with the help of my friend, clear consciousness. Simply by keeping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in my mind, I shall be saved from entering into the wombs of many mothers for repeated birth and death.
Great. Thank you. Wow. Amazing verses.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So the child's prayers in the womb, verses 11 to 21. These prayers are from a devotee, not a non-devotee, fallen into a pool of stool, urine and blood, scorched by the mother's gastric fire. The soul prays anxiously for his release. However, understanding that the world outside the womb is controlled by Maya Devi, the devotee Jiva resolves to remain in that uncomfortable situation. So, related to this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam Katha, there is one song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur entitled Arunodaya Kirtana, Part 2. So I'll read the translation as follows. Lord Gauranga calls, wake up, sleeping souls, wake up, sleeping souls. You have slept so long in the lap of the witch Maya. You came into this world saying, oh my Lord, I will certainly worship you. But having forgotten this promise, you have remained in great ignorance. I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, who else is your friend? I have brought the medicine for destroying the illusion of Maya. Now pray for this Harinam Mahamantra and take it. Thakura Bhaktivinoda fell at the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, and after begging for the holy name, he received the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Nitai Gaur Hari.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur really did give some amazing bhajans, instructions. Can you see the screen? Yeah. We can't hear you.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Kapila uvacha एवं कृतमतिर्गर्भे दशमास्यस्तु वान् ऋषिः सद्यः क्षेपति अभाचिन्नं प्रसूत्यै मारुतः.
Lena, you might be muted, huh?
So sorry.
Okay.
Lord Kapila continued, the 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born.
Sorry. Sorry, what's going on here? Okay, there we are.
तेनावसृष्टः सहसा कृत्वा वाक्षिरातुरः विनिष्क्रामति कृच्छ्रेण निरुच्वासो हतः स्मृतिः.
Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless, and deprived of memory due to severe agony.
पतितोऽभ्युभ्यश्रिन् मिश्रः विष्ठा भूरिव चेष्टते रोरुयति गते ज्ञानी विपरीतां गतिं गतः.
The child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and plays just like a worm germinated from the stool. He loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya.
परचन्दं न विदुषा पुष्यमानो जनेन सह अनभिप्रेतमापनः प्रत्याख्यातुम् अनीश्वरः.
After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of persons who are unable to understand what he wants, and thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances.
सायितो सुचिपर्यङ्के जन्तुः श्वेतजदूषिते नेशः कन्दूयनिङ्गानाम् आशनोत्थान चेष्टने.
Laid down on a foul bed, infested with sweat and germs, the poor child is incapable of scratching his body to get relief from his itching sensation, to say nothing of sitting up, standing, or even moving.
तुदन्ति याम त्वचं दंशा मशकामत्कुन्नादयः रुदन्तं विगतज्ञानं क्रिमयः क्रमिकं यथा.
In his helpless condition, gnats, mosquitoes, bugs, and other germs bite the baby, whose skin is tender, just as smaller worms bite a big worm. The child, deprived of his wisdom, cries bitterly.
इति एवं शैशवं भुक्त्वा दुःखं पोगण्डमेव च अलब्धाभीप्सितो ज्ञानात् इद्धमन्युः सुचार्पितः.
In this way, the child passes through his childhood, suffering different kinds of distress, and attains boyhood. In boyhood also, he suffers pain or desires to get things he can never achieve. And thus, due to ignorance, he becomes angry and sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So birth and childhood, verses 22 to 28. Unfortunately, the air causing childbirth pushes him out of the womb. Losing his memory because of agony of birth, he is cared for by his relatives who are unable to understand what he wants, unable to move or defend himself. The baby is repeatedly bitten by insects and cries bitterly. In childhood, he suffers frustration because he desires things which he cannot achieve. So continuing to read the translation from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur song entitled Danya, Humility, so surrender and humility. So it goes on as follows. As a fondled son in the lap of relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. My parents' affection helped me to forget the pangs of birth, and I thought the world very nice. Day by day I grew and soon began playing with other boys. Shortly my powers of understanding emerged. I read and studied my lessons incessantly. Traveling from place to place, proud of my education, I grew wealthy and maintained my family with undivided attention. O Lord Hari, I forgot you. Now in old age, Bhaktivinoda is sad, he weeps. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead passed my life in vain. What will be my fate now? And also in Prapana Jivanamritam, explains like the effect of bad association, the resolve to reject everything unfavorable by means of all the senses. O Madhava, let me not see the unvirtuous persons who are devoid of devotion for your lotus feet, and let me not hear the narratives which do not describe your divine personality. O Lord of the universe, may I never have any contact with those bereft of faith in you, and moreover, lifetime after lifetime, may I never be without the company of your associates who are devoted to your loving service. So this verse was spoken by Sri Kulashekara, and this is quoted from Sri Prapana Jivanamritam, and under the title of Rejection of the Unfavorable. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Saha dehena manena vardhamanena manyuna karoti vigraham kami kamishvantaya chatmanaha.
With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people.
भूत्या हि पञ्चभिरारब्धे देहे देह्या बुधो सकृत् अहं ममेति यशग्राह करोति कुमतिर्मतिम्.
By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this understanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region.
तदर्थं कुरुते कर्म यद्बद्धो याति संस्मृतिं योऽनुयाति ददत् क्लेशम् अविद्या कर्म बन्धनः.
For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because of he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death.
यद्यषद्भिः पथि पुनः शिष्णोदरकृतोद्यमैः आस्थितो रमते जन्तुस्तमो विशति पूर्ववत्.
If, therefore, the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, he again goes to hell as before.
Satyam Socham Dayamonam Buddhihi Shrirhiryashah Kshama Samodamo Bhagascheti Yat Sangaryati Sankshayam.
He becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, pain, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all such opportunities.
Okay. What an amazing journey.
Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. So, false ego grows, verses 29 to 33. By bad association and the influence of lust, the living entity, after growing up, again becomes bewildered by accepting the impermanent to be permanent and only thinking in terms of I and mine, and angry against similarly lusty people. By identifying with the body and performing sinful activities, he returns to hell as before. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that lust is the eternal enemy of the jiva soul. And it also explains in Bhagavad Gita, the three doorway to hell is lust, anger, greed. Yes. So we should avoid as much as possible by engaging in Krishna consciousness and absorbing our mind in Harikatha and Harikirtan in this way. So there is one verse in Prapanajimritam, and it is as follows. A realization of the fact that the surrendered soul who discovers his eternal identity and denounces his perversity caused by the association of lust, anger, greed, madness, delusion, and hatred is rescued forever from all evil pursuits by the devotional service of Lord Shri Krishna. O Lord, for so long have I obeyed the unending wicked dictates of lust, anger, greed, madness, delusion, and hatred, but they never took pity upon me, and I have felt neither shame nor the desire to abandon them. O Lord of the Yadus, after all this, I am leaving them behind. At last I have found my genuine sanity. I am surrendered wholly unto your lotus feet, which are the abode of fearlessness. Please now engage me as your personal servitor. This is a verse from Prapanajimritam under the heading of Embracing the Lord's Guardianship. Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaur.
Nice verse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teshvasanteषु moddhesu खण्डितात्मस्व साधुषु सङ्गं न कुर्यात् चोच्छेषु योषित् कृद्धामृगेषु च.
One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman.
न तथास्य भवेन्मोहो बन्धश्चान्य प्रसङ्गतः योषित् सङ्गाद् यथा पुंसो यथा तत्सङ्गि सङ्गतः.
The infatuation and bondage which accrued to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women.
प्रजापतिः स्वां दुहितरं दृष्ट्वा तद्रूपदर्शितः रोहितभूतां सोऽन्वधावत् वृक्षरूपी हतत्रपः.
At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind.
Yat Shrishta Shrishthesu Konvakhandit Dadhihi Puman Rashim Narayanam Rite Yoshin Mahyeha Mayaya.
Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayana is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of woman.
Balam me pasya mayayaha Srimaya Jaino Disham Yaha Karoti Padakrantan Ruvi Jrimbhena Kevalam.
Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of woman, who, by the mere movement of her eyebrows, can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip.
Mm.
Sangam Nakaryat Parama Pramada Sujatu Yogasya Param Paramarurukshuhu Matsevaya Pratilabdhatmalabho Vadanti Aniraya Dwaram Asya.
One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized himself by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman, for such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee.
Yopayati sanirmaya yoshiddeva vinirmita tam ikshitatmano mrityum nitri nehi kupamivavritam.
The woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass.
Ya manyate patim mohan manmayam rishabhayatim stitidvam sri sangatah prapto vittapatya grihapadam.
A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks up upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets.
Tam atmano vijaniyat patya grihatmakam devupashaditam mrityum mrigayorgayanam yatha.
A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer.
Hare Krishna.
Vivo.
So attachment to men and women, verses 34 to 42. A man, even great devotees and jnanis, should avoid women and those attached to women. Infatuation to any other object is not as complete as it is that results from attachment to women. By simply moving their eyebrows, women can control even powerful men. Amongst those who do not worship Narayan, among those who do not worship Narayan, no one is spared by Maya. Similarly, for a woman, the so-called protection of her husband and family are arrangements for her death. So we have to understand a few points now, because this description about attachment to men and women relates to the materialistic concept of life. So this is what happens in materialistic concept of life. But the spiritual concept of life, the devotional path, Shuddha Bhakti Marg, is described by Srila Bhaktivinoda that In one of his bhajan, he says, Edina grihe bhajana dekhi grihete go loka bhaya. This means when I see Krishna consciousness being practiced in my house, in my home, I see that my home has become Goloka Vrindavan.
Mm.
So Krishna is in the center of this family life, and therefore it's called Grihastha. And then the materialistic concept of life, family life, it is known as Grihameli, based on sense gratification. And now the thing is, therefore, we should, in Grihastha, in the Krishna conscious oriented family life, we should care for the family members as we would care for ourselves, and also speak sweetly to our family members who are devotees of Krishna. We should consider friends and family as servants of Krishna, and therefore we should serve them in a Krishna conscious mood. So here there is one passage from Prapanajimanitam again. It says, for one who receives the seed of devotion, who is selfless and penitent, denouncing his inability to abandon mundane enjoyment, despite realizing it to be the embodiment of suffering, and who sincerely gives himself incessantly to all the practices of devotion, in the heart of such a devotee, the Supreme Lord ascends like the rising sun to annihilate all ignorance with its reactions, revealing his divine personality in all its pristine glory. He who has imbibed a heart's faith in the tidings of my name, nature, and pastimes, who has become indifferent to all kinds of fruitive work and its rewards, who has learned that all forms of enjoyment and sensual passions ultimately transform into misery, yet he is unable to fully abandon such passions, such a faithful devotee, being determined that his shortcomings will be dispelled by the potency of devotion, gradually comes to abhor those evil passions that enslave him, knowing the havoc they wreak, and he serves me with love. When his objective is pure and sincere, I give him my mercy. In this way, the introspective devotee unceasingly absorbs himself in all the practices of devotional service as enunciated by me, and I, who am situated in the heart of my devotee, strike at the root of all the material urges that inflict his heart, reducing them to oblivion. By bringing me, the soul of all souls, into his heart, no evil can remain there. Swiftly is a hard knot of mundane ego severed, all doubts are slashed, and all mundane action is exhausted for that earnestly aspiring devotee. Hare Krishna, Nitai Gaur Hari.
Where is that from? Who?
This is a verse from Prapanajimanitam. It is a word of nectar from the script, so from the Supreme Lord. So this is the words spoken by Lord Shri Krishna himself, and it is mentioned here from. Wait a minute. It's. Exact quotation is from Tatraiva. I don't know what does it mean.
Okay. Wow.
That's
That's very
right. Yeah.
powerful.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Prapanajimanitam is about Sharanagati. Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaur Hari.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good. Okay. To the end now.
Tehena jiva bhutena lokalokamanuvrajan bhunjanaiva karmani karoti aviratam puman.
Due to this particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly.
Mm.
Jivo hyasanugo deho bhutendriya manomaya tannirodhoshamaranam avirbhavastu shambhavaha.
In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses, according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth.
द्रव्योपलब्धिस्थानस्य द्रव्येक्षायोग्यता यदा तत्पञ्चद्वमहं मानात् उत्पत्तिर्द्रव्यदर्शनम् यथाक्ष्णोर्द्रव्यावयव दर्शनायोग्यता यदा तदैव चक्षुषो द्रष्टृत्वा योग्यतानयोः.
When the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth.
Mm.
तस्मान् न कार्यतन्त्रासो न कार्पण्यं न सम्भ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीवगतिं धीरो मुक्तसङ्गश्चरेद् इह.
Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose.
Mm.
सम्यक् दर्शनया बुद्ध्या योगवैराग्ययुक्तया माया विरचिते लोके चरण्यस्य कलेवरम्. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Endowed with the right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus, one can be unconcerned with this material world. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very good. Oops.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, birth and death, verses 43 to 48. The living entity takes birth in various species on various planets and dies when his karma in that body comes to an end. The fear of death is conquered when one sees one's true spiritual nature and engages in devotional service. Understanding one's real nature, one can, even in this world, be free from attachment. As a living entity is eternal, the body simply a temporary covering. There is no real birth and death for the soul, and thus one should not be horrified, miserable, or eager to enjoy in the world. Hare Krishna. Yes. So, in Samambonam, in Prem Dham Deva Stotram, it is mentioned as follows. Radhika Vinod Matra Tadva Lakshanan Vayam Sadhu Sangha Krishna Nama Sadhanaika Nischayam Prema Seva Naika Matra Sadhya Krishna Tatparam Prema Dham Devam Eva Nomi Gaura Sundaram Prema Dhama Devam Eva Nomi Gaura Sundaram. So Radhika Vinod means Radha Krishna is our laksha, our goal. And by Sadhu Sangha, in the company of devotees, we shall chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, chanting the holy name and listening Krishna Katha in this way. And with prema seva naika, with loving devotion, we should engage in some seva. Bhakata seva parama siddhi. They say we should engage in the service to the Vaishnavas and like that. In this mode, we shall attain, in this way, we shall attain the shelter of the lotus feet of Shishi Radha Krishna, Gaura Nitai. Yes, and also in the songs of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, under the Atma Nivedana title, it says as follows: I have become supremely joyful by surrendering myself at your holy feet. Unhappiness has gone away, and there are no more anxieties. I see joy in all directions. Your two lotus feet are reservoirs of immortal nectar, where one may live free from sorrow and fear. I have found peace there now, and have given up the fear of worldly existence. I shall render service in your household, and not endeavor to enjoy the fruits of that service, but rather I shall strive for whatever pleases you, fully devoted to your lotus feet. Troubles encountered in your service shall be the cause of great happiness, for in your devotional service, joy and sorrow are equally great riches. Both destroy the misery of ignorance. I have completely forgotten all past history by feeling great joy in my mind. I am most certainly yours, and you are indeed mine. What need is there of any other treasure? Bhaktivinoda, diving into the ocean of bliss, devotes all his efforts for your service and dwells in your house according to your wishes. Hare Krishna, Nitai Gaur Haribol. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What an amazing chapter, because it gives us a very good idea of our journey in past lives and in this life, and how we can try to avoid such mistakes. This Bhagavatam is really amazing because it gives us the opportunity to, even before we make those mistakes again, to rectify ourselves. So Kapil Dev is really giving amazing instructions, and I like the way you supplement those by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans. So thank you very much, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Nitai Gaur Haribol.
Thank you, Leela. Thank you, Leena, for reading the English and the Sanskrit. Appreciate that. And thank you for the darshan.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for giving me the opportunity. I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you so much for the opportunity. We are blessed.
Any questions at all? Anything that... That's fine. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Nitai Gaur Haribol. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna.